All right, we thought the make or break moment from the 2025 season would have been one of the massive games or Lenora Sellers breakout Heisman candidate type game before the season. But the make or break moment, not only for 2025, but also for the entire tenure of the Shane Beamer era, is going to be who he hires next as offensive coordinator. We talk about the candidates and what happens now. Locked On Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler. Hope everyone's having a fantastic Monday, if that's even possible. We got a great show for you, talking about all the things related to the South Carolina offensive coordinator coaching search, what we're hearing, what we're expecting, where they should go. And I tell you what, we're going to get into a whole week of this, but we're going to start with a great episode today. Before we get started, I want to say thank you to everyone making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Shout out to our everydayers. If you have not already signed, or not signed up, but subscribed to the pod on YouTube or on any of the platforms you can choose to consume the podcast on, please do. It's the best way to help us grow. And thank you, like I said, to everyone making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time and the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So I alluded to this at the top of the broadcast, and I don't think it's anything that's surprising. It's just something we haven't had to talk about yet until now. And that is that what or who Shane Beamer hires as the next offensive coordinator at South Carolina is the biggest hire and the biggest decision probably of his coaching career, besides whether or not he wanted to take over the job at South Carolina or if he wants to go to Virginia Tech or anything like that. But right now, this is the biggest moment of his entire tenure and era at South Carolina, because it is going to make or break how long he is here. Like, you had a great year in 2024. That was awesome. And like any, I think, respectable program that bought you an extension, you got your staff an extension, and it bought you some good graces, or put you in the good graces of a lot of the fans and all that kind of stuff. But going 3-6 the following year, and you had some tough losses, but also you went 3-6. And one of the main reasons why is who you had an offensive coordinator. So all of that goodwill and lengthening of the leash, for lack of better terms, that Beamer was able to get last year with a great 9-4 season, I wouldn't say it's all gone, but that leash has shortened a considerable amount. And the main reason why is because Mike Shula was hired. I want to go into some of the reasons why he was hired, why I understand where Beamer might have been coming from. But also, I want to be very clear before I get into any of that. As I've said over and over again, it was a total failure. It was a total failure. So even why we can, even when we understand maybe the reasons why he might have been thinking it, it doesn't mean that it was the right decision. Okay. I also want to get into what we're hearing. What are some names to look at? And then, like I said, I think I said yesterday on Sunday's show, we had 2 live shows back to back that were great. You guys killed it. We had a lot of Ole Miss fans in here, which was something. But I will say, the thing that I look at for this week is in terms of a planning thing. It's a bye week, obviously. You got Texas A&M after the bye week. I want to spend most of this week talking about this hire. We'll do some recruiting stuff, basketball stuff as well, because basketball starts tomorrow. I'm recording this Monday night. But I want to spend this getting in depth with some targets for the offensive coordinator position. Let's start today, though, and get up with the latest of what happened. So, obviously, Shane Beamer fires Mike Shula. He makes that decision on Sunday afternoon. We went live immediately. You guys, we had a big show. We had a ton of you guys showed up. We had, I think, almost like 500 people in the live show, which is great, and about 10,000 that watched it. Appreciate you guys so much for doing that. It was a lot of fun. So the other thing, he spoke later that night with the media like he does on Sunday nights, and he had a couple of quotes about it, and I want to talk about some of the decisions moving forward, because some of the questions y'all were asking yesterday I didn't have the answer to yet. They have been answered. Who's going to be calling plays? It's going to be split. Those dudes are going to be split between Sean Elliott and Mike Fury. As you guys know and brought up to me several times yesterday, not the first time that Fury's called plays, not at this level by any means, but something you at least get a bye week to ease into, go over like what your plan is, what you want your identity to be, what you want to do as a coaching staff, what you want to do with your personnel, and figure out how to make this just at least a little bit different. Here's the fun part, and I'm noticing now that I spelled Carolina wrong in the damn what do you call it, little show frame here. Here's the fun part about the rest of the season. The season sucks. It's over in terms of like you got to win out to go to a bowl game. I don't see that happening. I think most of you probably don't see that happening either. That's fine, but hear me out. Now you get to just kind of go out there and do like whatever and kind of go have fun. Like there's nothing to lose now. Clemson sucks. You should beat Carolina in the battle for in the Mike Yuba Bowl is what I'm going to call it. Like you should win that game. I love that. I think they can beat Clemson, and you can end that on that note, or in the season on a good note. The A&M thing is going to be a little bit more different because that's going to be a tough game on the road, blah, blah, blah. But now you get to go out and like kind of cut it the loose, man. Like cut it the F loose. God, I can't cuss on the show. But you can cut it loose and go out there and let Lenoris go out there and try to air stuff out and like be creative, be more fun. Mike Fury, like I feel like that guy more than anyone besides Lenoris has to be the happiest about this new era or breath of fresh air or possibility and stuff like that and change of direction. This team is going to go in for the rest of the season. And not just because he's going to get to call plays and that's going to be a fun responsibility for him to have and something he can show off his skills at, but also because that guy sees what we have been talking about all year on a daily basis. He's looking at this receiver room all the time and is like, man, I got some dudes here. Be nice to try and get them the football. Like it'd be nice to get some of these guys some game action. And now you also get to go be in a position where some of these guys that you were very worried that they were going to leave because of like not playing or like their lack of playing time or like the future of the program or whatever. Like some of those receivers, like, and listen, we haven't heard any definitive things about that, but just now you get to go play those guys. Go show us what you got. There's nothing to lose. Most of them, if they haven't played in 4 games, you got 3 left. Like, go cut it loose. And it should be at least a breath of fresh air and a fresh start. And that alone is something I'm excited about. Now, one of the things that Beamer said, he said, and I quote, "There's another level of play that we can get to offensively. It's my job to do that. Today was the first step along those lines. I made the decision last December to promote Shula and believe it was the right decision for a lot of reasons as I spoke about it at the time. Frankly, it just worked like I wanted it to work. I'm sorry. Frankly, it just hasn't worked like I wanted it to work. We all have a hand in it. Players, coaches, we all have to be better, but just did not like the way we were performing offensively through now 10 games and felt like going forward short-term and long-term, this is a decision that I needed to make for the betterment of our program." Pepper says, hey, yeah, she seconds that motion. What stopped you from making the decision after the LSU game or at any other point? Every situation is different. Every week is different. And as a leader of the program, I make the decisions I feel are best at that time. At that time, I made the decision I did with Lonnie and not Mike. Then Mike today. There's different reasons for that. But in the end, I make the decisions I think are best that time. That's not really telling us anything. Was there one thing in Mike's game planning that didn't translate over into games? I wouldn't say that. I'm aware of what the game plan is each week. I'm in a lot of those offensive staff meetings. I'm in every quarterback meeting. I know what's being called on the headset. I saw the preparation each week. At the end of each day, you're judged by what happens on Saturday, and we haven't been efficient and productive enough on Saturdays. If it was something with the game plan I didn't like going into it, I'd certainly speak up. I'm going to stop reading now because I'm only going to get frustrated. And I honestly don't even want to delve into why this took so long to do. I will tell you, the number one reason I think that this hire was made was you had to feel pretty strong about what you had, like from a Beamer standpoint, like what you had returning, and again, you had what should have been the ultimate equalizer with Lenoris Sellers. And keep in mind, Dowell Loggins was horrible for the first 6 games last year, like horrible for the first 6 games last year. This offense was putrid, and then something clicked. And so to think that with somebody that was already in the building and knew what they wanted to do and then also understood the skill set, like surely you would just think Yes, that's what we want to do, but it was just so uncreative and lacking innovation and imagination. It just was time to go. But I do understand the reason behind what Beamer did in terms of, hey, I want to have as much continuity as possible because in this day and age, as much as NIL, as much as booster funds, as much as like all the money you're going to be able to spend, as important as that is, one of the things that's also super, super important is being able to figure out a way to have as much retention and figure out how to have as much continuity from a staff standpoint year over year as possible. Most good teams, when you look at them going into year after year, that's something they have. And it's something that South Carolina had. They really didn't have any major changes with the staff at all. And especially from an offensive standpoint, I know Loggins was gone, but it's like, I don't think anybody could have seen this being this bad. I don't think anybody could have seen this being this bad. So I get it. It's time to move on. Now let's start talking about some of the different targets and places you can go and where you should look. And there's a short list. We're going to get into it. There's a couple that I don't think we're talking enough about, and we're going to talk about those next. And I'm going to tell you what I think the next steps need to be. Before we do that, want to give a quick shout out to our friends at Game Time. Told you about them before at the start of the show. They are sponsoring today's episode, and now is the best time to use them. I get a little bit of nostalgia just thinking about the first time I used Game Time, which was like Creed a couple summers ago, and then also going to basketball games last year. Had a blast doing it at Colonial Life. Great times. Now, basketball starts tomorrow. I'm pretty excited about it, to be honest. I think they're going to be much better, much improved. I'm excited to see what Lamont Paris has. Also excited to see what Don Staley has as the number 2 team in the country. But I digress. College football is still here, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. Let's be real. Actually getting tickets, though, it can feel a little bit more of a battle than the game itself, with endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I personally use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices. With no surprise fees, what you see is what you pay. I tell you what, if you're looking to go to that final game of the year against Clemson, and maybe it's a game where not only South Carolina is able to win, but also it might be Dabo Swinney's last game at Clemson if he loses. So it could be a very memorable one. Make sure you are taking the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. We'll be right back with more Locked On Gamecocks right after this. All right, we're back. I want to get into some of the targets of what some of the targets of who I think. Oh boy. Of who I think South Carolina should be targeting, and also for offensive coordinator, and also how I think they should approach this. And it's interesting now because it's like you don't want to sit here and overextend yourself. But I do think this is important enough. Like this is an important enough of a hire where you have to go throw some money around. And I've seen a lot of names mentioned. There's some that I think are really good, some that I think are maybe not as realistic. Somebody mentioned Billy Napier yesterday. That's a no for me. Just from a play calling standpoint of what I saw this year, that's a no for me. Now, let's also keep in mind this. You're most likely going to be breaking in a new quarterback with this offensive coordinator. The identity of whatever offense you bring in here does not need to be necessarily tied to the skill set of Lenore Sellers. And I think that's something people are missing. Like if he stays, I think that's great. I would love it if he did. I understand if he doesn't. I would love it if he did. If he does, you don't need to go out and hire an offensive coordinator that is necessarily his playbook is tethered to the skill set of Lenore Sellers. That does not need to happen. That would be a mistake because that's a very short-sighted decision to make. But again, you've got some tools to play with if you are going out to get a offensive coordinator. What I think they need to do is have this be a very, very diligent search. And also, they need to make sure they're going at this with the idea that we are going to spend some money. I think you make this person one of the higher paid assistants in the country. And I think that I said this yesterday. I don't think you can pay him more than you're paying Clayton White, but you might have to. You might have to also just pay Clayton White more. And I don't think that that's a bad thing to do. I think if Beamer had the option, he would probably just do it out of his own pocket. Like that's a guy that last year when he was getting his extension, he made sure all of the assistants got theirs first, which I thought was a very noble thing that we just didn't talk enough about, to be quite honest. But I think that he knows how important this hire is. I don't think he's going to promote from within. I don't think that anything pro style should ever come out of the mouth of anybody in that room. If they do, they should immediately be asked to leave. What they need to do is figure out what kind of offense we want to run in this day and age of football to compete for X amount of wins, or where our goals are. Our goals are to be in the college football playoff, compete for championships, compete for SEC championships, and be consistently in 8 wins, 9 wins every year. Now, like, I don't think he's going to say, yeah, we want to go 8-4 every year. Like, that's not something he would ever publicly say. That's a very good goal to have considering the history of this program. What kind of offensive style do you need to run in this day and age of football that's going to get you there? Now, remember, you've got some toys to play with. Landon Duckworth coming in. Cutter Woods is really good. Aaron Nolan was a former 5-star. Like, you've got some tools to play with, not to mention all the talent you have in that receiver room. Offensive line, Darius Gray coming in next year, former 5-star. Josiah Thompson going into his 5th year. Casey Henry hopefully healthy. Like, you should be able to, like, there are some pieces in place that you should be able to have an improvement. Now, I don't want to get ahead of myself because I thought there'd be improvement this year, but like, what kind of offense do you want to run? I don't want to see anything that is, we're going 5 wide, air raid, anything like that. Obviously, you're not going to go do something stupid like a triple option type thing. I don't think you're going to see anything like that. But I will say this, in this day and age of football, especially with the clock rules now, you're seeing a little bit more, like, the hurry up is great. What Lane Kiffin does is great. Steve Sarkisian, where they can score from far, score often, all that kind of stuff. That's all fine and dandy. I don't need you to go be 2010s Oregon. I think that you start looking at this through the lens of, what do you need in this current era of college football? What skill set and what kind of, like, types of play calls and playbook and offensive identity would best fit the current state and rules of the game. Now, and what I mean by that is this: teams that are trying to drop back and throw it 1,000 times and then having to have their defense right back on the field. Josh Heupel had to struggle. He struggled with that a lot when he first got to Tennessee. That's not a good plan of attack anymore, especially with the clock constantly moving and it being basically a running clock until a 2-minute timeout. Teams like Vanderbilt, that's what I would want to look for. Teams like Vanderbilt, and I think that you go up to whoever the OC is, right, and say, like that you're not. I'm not at Vanderbilt. I'm saying in general, this is what we want to do. We want to be able to be efficient, and we want to be able to run an offense that is able to eat clock, control clock, because that's not something they do well right now. And that doesn't mean run the football over and over and over again, because it doesn't have to anymore. You look at Alabama, Ryan Grubb, they control the clock better than most teams do, but they mainly do it through the pass. So figure out a way to find an offense, because you have Clayton White as a defensive coordinator who is really, really good. And if you're trying to condense a game, then you already have a really good piece to that puzzle, which is, if we can go out and we get 7 to 9 total drives in a game, which is not far-fetched sometimes in modern football right now. If you're only getting less than 10 drives per game, if you can score on 5 of them, you have a defensive coordinator that's shown over and over and over again he's good enough to win. So how can you do that? I think the offense that Vandy runs, which is painfully efficient, like, not death by 1,000 paper cuts, but I mean, you're constantly moving forward. Like, you're constantly ahead of the chains. You're constantly in 3rd and short, 2nd and 6, 2nd and 4, those types of things. And you start making teams, you start squeezing teams as you condense the game, and you figure out ways to hold on to the football, right? And then you're shortening the game because you already have, you can play to your other strengths from the defensive side of the football. That's what I want to see. I do not want to see somebody drop back and throw it 40 times a game. I don't want to see somebody that has to run it, 60% of play calls or anything like that. I don't want, I'm not saying you need to go out and be like 50-50 balance. None of that. I want to see an efficient offense that is able to figure out ways where you don't have to be gimmicky. But if you want to go 12 personnel with 2 wide receivers or 3 wide receivers and like fine. I'm fine with all of that. I love what Vandy does. It's people constantly in motion, misdirection, a lot of window dressing, but still able to be physical with that window dressing. You're not running jet sweeps like Malzahn and Auburn back in the 2010s. It's way more substance than that. That's what I want to see. Now, the time you've been waiting for. When we come back, I'm going to get into some of the early candidates that I think I want to see most going into next year. I'm going to give you several names and people to look out for. And then later this week, like I said, we are going to get into all of those names with a deep dive into their playbooks and all that good stuff. Before we do that, we're going to go to a quick little break. We're going to pay some bills, and I want to talk to you about our friends at FanDuel. I'm very excited about this because not only is the NBA back, about 6 minutes. Not only is the NBA back, but college basketball is back as well, which means it's time for prop bets. It's time for a lot of fun stuff going into college basketball season. But for the sake of time, we'll talk about the NBA. There's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is offering new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com, sign up, and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. We'll be right back with the final segment for Locked On Gamecocks after this. All right, we're closing out the show with this. Here are some candidates that I want to see most. And I'm sorry it took so long to get here, but here we are. I think there's several candidates that I want to look at and we'll dive into, but I'm going to give you 3 from the start. And it's not going to be Kendall Briles. Not going to be Billy Napier, like I said. I think you start here, all right? I have 3 names, and I'll tell you exactly in order who I would like most. North Texas, that is Jordan Davis. That is first and foremost. Second, I go after Gus Malzahn at Florida State. Third, John David Baker at ECU, at East Carolina. So Gus, maybe I'll put Gus third, to be honest. I think Gus is, the numbers don't lie, but he's also doing that in the ACC, which is not the same. We've seen his shtick not do as well here. Let's start with who I said first, though. That is Jordan Davis, kid from North Texas. North Texas has been a really, really good team this year. They were knocking on the door. I think they still are knocking on the door of being a potential playoff team. But the offense under North Texas, right now they're ranked 6th nationally in total offense, 488 yards per game. I mean, you haven't had over 350. So we haven't sniffed that. So I love that. The next one, 27th and third down conversions. That's huge. Passing yards per game over 300 and that ranks 6th, and then rushing yards per game 179. That ranks 46th. Second best scoring offense in the country. I would assume that those numbers would come back a little bit, especially in the SEC. But regardless, all of those numbers, the consistency across the board, where you rank in the top 20 in most of those things, the top 25 in most of those things, that's huge. Again, I don't care. Like ranking 6th in passing offense and then 46th in rushing offense may seem like a pretty big disparity. Like you're way too heavy on one side. And like I said, we'll get into the ins and outs of the play calls this week and the offenses. But that's 300 yards offense or 300 yards passing per game while still rushing for 180 would be a dream right now. Like that would be a dream right now. They're 8-1. I think that's a massive pickup. I think that would be a massive pickup. And it's also a guy where the OC of a G5 school is not necessarily going to take a leap to being a head coach somewhere next, unless it's a G5 spot. This is a great next step. And I think that'd be awesome to go get a guy like that. And whatever you're paying, like that's an easy sell to say, we're going to go pay you $1.5 million. I'll look up his salary before the next show. I guarantee he's not making that. Up next, John David Baker, I think, is somebody that a lot of people have mentioned with good reason. ECU, not a great team necessarily. They're 5-3, but they've had some close losses. But here's the thing: offensively, okay, 13th in the country in total offense, 7th in third downs, 16th in passing, 35th in rushing. So 289 yards passing per game, 186 rushing per game. The red zone offense isn't great, and they're averaging 32 points per game. But I do think the part of figuring out how to start just getting more yards and being a little bit more efficient with both your passing and your run game. Again, you have pieces in place already. I think that would be a great look. And the last one's Gus Malzahn. Listen, Florida State has been a pretty big failure for the most part, considering what happened at the start of the year versus now. But listen to these numbers, guys. First nationally in total offense, 510 yards per game, 6th in third down conversions, 8th in rushing offense, 35th in red zone offense, 7th in scoring with 40 points per game, 27th in passing, 8th in rushing. Those are incredible numbers. I don't know if he wants to get back into head coaching. Arkansas is a possibility. I don't know if he wants to leave Florida State. If he wants to come back to the SEC, it is a phone call you have to make. And those numbers are incredible. Like there's games where they haven't been good, but the other part of it too, you saw if you watched that Alabama game earlier in the year, a lot of motion, really good job of getting your quarterback out in space, spacing with your receivers and the route trees, and what they're trying to do from a passing concept and also from a running concept. Very, very creative, which I think is something you would need to do. And here's the thing. We've seen this dude have success with horrible offensive lines at Auburn. Horrible offensive lines at Auburn. So those are my top 3 picks. We'll get into more this week, but I think those are the first 3 phone calls you make. I think, and listen, at the very top is Jordan Davis. The guy at Vandy is 4. And admittedly, it's been a long day. We're about to go eat some dinner. I'll get into his name and all that kind of stuff that I should have looked up beforehand for tomorrow's show. But until then, guys, I appreciate you guys listening. This has been a wild couple of days, and hopefully it's a step in the right direction either way. So until next time, go Cox.